Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
The Devil is in the Details, Part 2. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, the author of 4 books on retirement and offices in Bowling Green and Louisville, Kentucky, the money missionary himself, Tony Walker.
Welcome to another fun-filled episode of the Worry-Free Retirement. And last week we discussed our most recent theme, the devil's in the details, and now this is part 2. So just to reiterate, the reason for this theme is to remind you that the financial institutions out there have basically got 4 objectives in mind when it comes to trying to convince you and I to hand over our hard-earned money to them. Now those 4, as I have learned years ago from one of my mentors, Bob Castellone, they come in 4 flavors, if you will. First of all, these are the 4 rules of financial institutions. And folks, if you're going to do business with them, you really need to understand how this works. Number 1, they want our money. Now let's think about this. Without our money, they cannot exist. So their first objective is to figure out how to get it. That's the first objective. Number 2, financial institutions would prefer to have our money coming in on a regular, systematic basis. Now let's think about this for a minute. The 401k is a great example. You set up a 401k at your employer, and every month, month in, month out, systematically, they deduct money out of your check and it goes to the financial world. So that's perfect for them. Number 3 financial rule, they would like to hold on to that money for as long as possible. Now again, I'm not trying to pick on 401ks here, but if you're 35 years of age and you have a 401k, unless you want to borrow the money, which is not a great way to get it, you can't even get your money. It's locked up until 59 and a half in most cases. So rule number 3, they'd like to hold on to it for as long as possible. And finally, the number 4 rule of financial institutions and how they make money on other people's money, listen to this one now, they would just as soon give you back as little as possible in the end. Again, we're not picking on the 401k plan, but people forget this. You die, then you leave it to somebody, and there's something that people think is a great deal called a stretch IRA, and basically what happens is your beneficiaries never get to use the money either. They just get a bone thrown to them every year with what's called this minimum distribution. So to kind of summarize this whole financial institution thing and understand how they keep making money on our money, I'm going to use a great analogy that Mr. Castellone shared with me once in a conference. He said, you got to remember, financial institutions are like Dracula. Dracula needed blood to live. Without it, he would die. Well, the financial institutions, just like Dracula, need our money. Without it, they die. So now, before we get too cynical here, I say this simply so we can understand that as long as we have money to work with, the general idea here is we've got to hand it over to somebody. For instance, although we are dedicating today's show to the concept of insurance, remember we're going to go through the 4 financial institutions. Last week we covered Wall Street and fees. Today we're going to talk about insurance and how insurance companies make money on our money. But again, it amuses me that there's a guy on TV, for instance. Let me digress a little bit. There's a guy on TV and on the internet, and he's always talking about how much he hates annuities, which of course annuities are insurance products. In fact, I saw a recent ad, he'd said he'll never sell them. In fact, he'd rather go to HE double hockey sticks than sell an annuity. So if you look into all of his literature, which they did send me his literature, quite frankly, and go through all these glossy 4-page brochures, you'll find out that no wonder he doesn't like annuities, because annuities don't pay recurring fees to their brokers. This gentleman does. In fact, if he got as much as $500,000, he'll be glad to work with you and charge 1.5% to handle your money. Now remember, that's 1.5% you have to pay this person every year, whether he makes money for you or not. So maybe good for him, maybe not so good for you. So I say I'm happy to announce that I'm reintroducing a money management program similar to the one I used in the 90s, back in the 1990s as an investment advisor and fiduciary, I used Charles Schwab as my custodian for clients who had money in the market. Now, we have reintroduced that program, and here's why I'm so excited. As a fiduciary and as an independent advisor, we can set any fee we want. So what we're finding out is the fees we are offering, charging on this money management platform, are roughly running 1/2 of what everybody else is. And if you add that up over the course of your lifetime, that's not just thousands of dollars sometimes in fee savings, but hundreds of thousands of dollars that we might be able to save you on your account. So again, if you have a brokerage account, if you're getting ready to roll out of a 401k, maybe you're just thinking about investing a little bit of money in the market, but you would like a fiduciary who would meet with you in person and provide fees that are fully transparent, and we disclose all those, we have a new service we're offering. All right, take this email down. So it's heather@TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You want to email heather@TonyWalkerFinancial.com. And what Heather will provide for you, if we have your full statements, we will provide a free fee analysis of your investments to see how much we can save you to do the same thing. And of course, if I feel like I can help you, we'd be happy to set up an appointment with you and I to discuss how our new program with Charles Schwab as our fiduciary could possibly save you not hundreds, but possibly thousands of dollars a year on your brokerage accounts or 401k. All right, so when we come back, we're going to talk about, remember, the second financial world out there, insurance. We're going to find out what insurance is really for, how it works, and again, the insurance company's role in helping you be worry-free, and more importantly, not to give these insurance companies more money than they rightfully deserve. I'm going to get the whiteboard out. You're watching the WorryFree Retirement. I'll be right back. Did you realize that Wall Street and your advisor could be making hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a year to manage your money? There's no reason to remain in the dark about fees. Take advantage of our free fee analysis today and learn more about our new investment management platform using Charles Schwab as our custodian. To learn more or to find out what the fees are on your investments, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. All right, welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. I'm Tony Walker. And by the way, I know a lot of people out there like buying expensive steak dinners for complete strangers. We tend to like to treat our clients to some fun stuff. In fact, yesterday in Louisville, we had our first annual ever, hopefully not last, Client Appreciation Golf Tournament. There's a picture of me with a few of the folks there and had a good turnout. All the Louisville staff was up there, Aaron and Gina and Trey, and just had a wonderful time and really appreciate everybody showing up. The weather was awful at first, and it's like the clouds parted right before we got ready to tee off, and it was a beautiful day. So again, thanks to all the clients that participated, and we got some other client events going on. So if you're a client out there watching, remember to get signed up before some of these get filled up. So we appreciate your business very much. Anyway, before we get into the devil and the details of insurance companies, let's first make sure we're on the same page in terms of what is an insurance company. Now remember, their purpose is how will they benefit from our money? How do they make money on our money? First and foremost, insurance companies are set up to take on risk that we cannot handle. That's why you should be dealing with any insurance company. Car, home, boat, life, annuities, it doesn't matter. The idea is you're going to give them money to take on a risk that you cannot handle. Now what they do is they take the money you give them, it's called a premium, all right, and that is invested. These insurance companies are required by law, these are statutory reserves, insurance departments of each state regulate these companies. This is why I like insurance companies, quite frankly, because they are highly regulated and they are generally watched very closely to make sure that they have plenty of assets to make potential claims. That's why you see a hurricane blow through Florida and you think, how can they afford to pay all those claims? Well, because they had money set aside on a safe basis in order to pay those claims. Now the problem is insurance companies don't invest in the stock market, or very little of them do, and if it is, it's a small amount. So the investments in an insurance company are very low yielding investments. They might have mortgages, corporate bonds, some government bonds, but very, very low yields because they have to have that money available. They can't take a lot of risk with that money. Now, the mistake is not understanding the value of what we get, but not understanding what type of risk we transfer over to them. That's one reason we call annuities sleep insurance around here. If you buy an annuity, the main purpose of the annuity is you want protection, but also we have taught you, hopefully over the years, that the annuities are the only contractual guaranteed income that you can rely on for the rest of your life. It's guaranteed by the insurance companies. Well, what we want to talk about today is something that I think is interesting. Again, we've touched on this whole Department of Labor ruling that took effect just about a week ago. And what's so interesting, I'm seeing more and more advisors all of a sudden talking to people about overfunded life insurance, something we've been doing for years. In fact, there's a picture of my son-in-law, Trey, who just joined us. If you would like a free quote on overfunded life insurance, you can email Trey at TonywalkerFinancial.com, Trey@TonywalkerFinancial.com. We'll be happy to share with you the beauty of these products, and the good thing, they're for any age. So whether you're 16 or 60, this is something for as little as a car payment, you can start to build tax-free wealth for yourself and your family. Now, what's so funny about all this is the Department of Labor ruling is affecting 401k plans, IRA plans, and it has rocked the financial world. But these insurance products, life insurance, kind of fall under the radar. So that's why if you're saying, hey, that is interesting, Tony. I had my broker the other day call me about life insurance. I didn't even know he sold life insurance. Well, that's why they're talking to you about life insurance, folks. It's another way, not rightly or wrongly, but it's another way for them to make money on your money. So again, life insurance is something I cut my teeth on about 33 years ago. I know a little something about the subject. So what I'm going to do today on the whiteboard is help you try to understand how insurance companies price life insurance. All right, Aaron, let's just go full screen real quick here. Here are the different types of life insurance. Okay, the most popular life insurance and the oldest life insurance around, something that gets raked over the coals quite a bit, but is my favorite, is called whole life insurance, or what I like to call dividend participating whole life. That's the first type of life insurance. The second type of life insurance that's fairly popular, came back out in the 80s when interest rates went spiking upwards, is called either universal or sometimes it's called adjustable life. Now, these products are really in for some big time trouble. If you took out one of these in the 80s or 90s, and back then I was even telling people, yeah, you get 10 or 11% interest because that's what the interest rates were. We're going to see in a minute, that ain't what they're paying now, folks. And if you think the premiums you're paying are going to keep that policy in force, more than likely, it's going to fall apart on you. So that's a problem. The next type of life insurance is called variable life, which simply means it's in the stock market. Market goes up, you make good values. The market goes down, you may have a problem. Then you have index universal life, one of the newer products, one of the newest kids on the block. It's being oversold in my opinion. And again, we've talked about assumptions before. Index universal life will probably have in about 20 years the same problems universal life is having now because agents are showing values that are way, way too high in my opinion. And finally, the last type of insurance that probably is the most popular because it's the cheapest premium. I didn't say the most inexpensive. I said the cheapest premium is called term life insurance. So let's do this. Let's go over to the whiteboard here. And I want to show you something that's really important. All right. So we're going to say, let's say death benefit here. So death benefit here. And we're going to put age here. All right. So what happens with any type of life insurance? Remember, what they're worried about in life insurance is trying to figure out when you're going to die. Obviously, if we all knew when we're going to die, this stuff would be easy. The insurance companies probably be out of business, okay? They don't know when you're going to die, but they have these people called actuaries. And because insurance companies have what's called the law of large numbers, they got this huge bank of people, these actuaries are very, very good at predicting not who will die, but how many people in a given year will die. So the insurance companies take your premium, they invest it, they use their mortality tables, and with pretty much certainty, they can make sure that they don't pay out too much in claims. But how does that affect you? How does this work in the pricing? So with any policy, there's something called the cost of insurance. The cost of insurance. So let's think about this. Aaron, America's favorite financial sidekick. I bet you could get this right, Aaron. If my age is 25 and we're thinking about maybe a 70-year-old taking out insurance, which one will have the highest cost of insurance? Aaron, please say 70. Yeah, please say 70. But anyway, so let's say the mortality for a 70-year-old is 80, okay? So in other words, the mortality tables tell us that roughly half of the people age 70 are going to die when they're 80. So if we're both looking at a $100,000 life policy, I'm just using these numbers out of the blue, folks, because this person only has 10 years to live, and the insurance company is only going to have 10 years worth of their premiums, or at least they think, they might say, we need $8,000 a year, Mr. 70-year-old, to buy a $100,000 policy. Because what they're figuring out, okay, if we take $8,000 a year, we got to pay the agent that sells the policy, we got to invest it, we got to make sure we get our money back, all right? Now, what about a 25-year-old? A 25-year-old might have a life expectancy of 85, okay? Because they're so much younger, and they might say, the insurance company says, golly, we've got potentially 60 years here before this young person's even going to croak. And by the way, most people buy term life insurance at this age, and this is even worse. Now the insurance company says, oh, this is really good. What we'll do, we'll price this young person to around 50, and we'll give them this real cheap term insurance, because more than likely they're probably not going to die. Then when they get to age 50, we're going to jack the rates up about 10 or 20 times what we're paying. They won't be able to afford the coverage anymore, and they're out of coverage, and we don't have any money exposed. So the point is, they would have a lower premium. That's true. But the odds are they may not collect on it depending on the type of policy. So this is why, if you're thinking about life insurance, and if you're in good health, in particular if you're in good health, the only difference between life insurance and any other insurance, here it is, folks, you got to remember this. If you were to die, I'm kidding around when I say if. We all know it's going to happen, folks. Life insurance is the only product, if you have the right type of life insurance, where you're guaranteed to have all the money paid back plus interest tax-free to your family. So think about all the insurances you are paying for right now: car, home, health, cancer, long-term care, whatever. And of all those insurances, only one, if it's the right type of contract, life insurance, will guarantee to return all of your money back plus interest. How much interest? Depends on when you die. So if you would like a free analysis of your life insurance policies, or maybe you're thinking about one of these policies, maybe your broker started talking about life insurance. Folks, we've been doing this 33 years. I know these policies well. Why don't you do this? Why don't you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com if you want to meet with me or have a question about life insurance or any type of insurance for that matter. I'll be happy to try to help you. We do focus on the life insurance and annuities. Those are two products that we offer people. So if you are thinking about those two products, please give us an opportunity to talk to you. Just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Well, does the Bible have anything to say about life insurance and sinkholes maybe, and Corvettes? Well, not really, but in a way it does. I'm going to talk to you about the Bible and the transfer of risk, the greatest cost of all that you can't handle but somebody else can. But first, I got to get me a cup of coffee. I'll be right back.
I've worked hard all my life, and I've saved a lot of money in my 401k. And now that I'm getting close to retirement, I really don't know what to do with it.
Sound like your situation? I'm Tony Walker, and for the past 30 years, I've helped thousands of people worry less about money, and I'd like to help you too.
Don't leave your future to chance. Get a game plan now with one of the most experienced and trusted names in the business. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Oh yeah, another good cup of coffee. I hope you're enjoying the program. And I didn't have a chance to welcome all of our newest viewers. We have a lot of TV stations, several radio stations broadcasting the Worry-Free Retirement. Best thing to do is go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You want to click at the bottom of the screen, the TV icon, and that'll show you all the show times and the different stations carrying this. Again, we're with America's favorite financial sidekick, Aaron Orander. We crank out a new show every week, folks, not a bunch of reruns or stale information here. By the way, I forgot to mention today's date, June 13th, 2017 of this show, June 13th, 2017. Well, this week's episode has dealt with the institution of insurance companies and why in the world we hand over so much of our hard-earned money They call it insurance premiums. I call it handing over our hard-earned money. And why we would do that. That is, why must we ask ourselves, we work hard, we pay taxes on all this money, and then, with what little is left over sometimes, we are willing to hand all of this money over to these institutions known as insurance companies. So first of all, let's summarize why we give them so much of our money. Ready? Because you should be giving them money to handle large dollar amounts that you can't handle. Let me take an extreme example. I live and have my offices also in Bowling Green, Kentucky. As most of you know, the world-famous Corvette is manufactured right there in Bowling Green. Aaron, do we have a video? Can you roll it of the infamous sinkhole that caved in right next door at the, there it is right there. So this was the Corvette Museum several years ago, and the had a sinkhole below it. There's sinkholes all over Bowling Green. Of course, you got Mammoth Cave just up the road, so it is a problem. But anyway, the sinkhole fell in, and in with it went a bunch of Corvettes. Now, my idea, I thought this would have been a great idea, would be not to fill in the sinkhole. They brought in engineers and filled it in, and I'm thinking, why do that? Why don't you leave the cars down there, put some floodlights on them, put one of those big, huge pieces of glass that you can walk across. I mean, if they got glass you can hang out over the Grand Canyon and don't fall through, surely you could put it over a sinkhole there in Bowling Green. And then you could have a video clip just running over and over. I think people would enjoy walking over and seeing that. And yeah, kind of like the old Floyd Collins. Do you remember that, Aaron? Floyd Collins was a guy who went spelunkering in somewhere in Mammoth Cave years ago, and he got trapped in there, and all the tourists showed up, and I don't know if they ever found the guy or not. But I mean, the whole sinkhole / Corvette thing would have been a great idea. But anyway, I'm digressing here. So here's my thought. Let's say you're riding down the road. All right, let's get back to insurance. You're texting. I know you're not supposed to do that. And you're not paying attention. And coming up the merge ramp on I-65 is a big old huge semi-tractor trailer loaded with brand new Corvettes. You're not paying any attention. You're barreling down I-65. Run the tractor trailer off the road. There go the new Corvettes flying off. There goes the driver doing a 2.5 out of that thing. And you're nervous because it's a bad accident. You walk away, pick up your cell phone real quick, call your insurance agent, tell him what happened, and the first words out of his mouth hopefully are, Aaron, you know, Aaron doesn't know. No, you're covered, right? However, the insurance agent later asks, Tony, what was involved in that accident? Well, I had a driver and 8 Corvettes, and everything's damaged, and he's in the hospital. So you find out later on you're not sued for your $300,000 of liability coverage. You thought that was plenty. You're sued for $5 million. And you got a big problem. You don't have that kind of money. So what do? Well, odds are you can't do anything but fess up and try to figure out how to come up with $5 million. Bottom line is it would have been better to give the insurance company, let's say, $500 for what's called an umbrella policy to cover a large risk that you couldn't handle. See, you kind of get the picture there. So remember, large risks you can't handle, you let the insurance company handle. Small risk, you do. What does the Bible talk about insurance and Corvettes and sinkholes? It really doesn't. But it does talk about this idea of the price we pay to save our very souls. In fact, Aaron, let's go over to Matthew 18, 23, 27. This is a really interesting parable, and I'm going to read to you starting in verse 23. So let's go there, Aaron. So basically what Jesus describes as the kingdom of heaven. And what he says here, I'll read it for you. He says, "For this reason the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a certain king who wished to settle accounts with his slaves. And he began to settle them, and there was one slave that brought to him owed 10,000 talents. Now back in those days, 10,000 talents is estimated to be several $1 million. So Aaron, if I asked you to fess up and pay me a couple of $1 million or become my slave, or I'm going to sell you into slavery, you got a problem, right? Because I don't think you have a couple of $1 million. Otherwise, you wouldn't be standing behind a camera in a small office in Louisville today. So basically, the servant cannot repay. The Lord commands that he be sold. He's got to sell his family. He's going into slavery. What does the slave do in verse 26? Falls down and says, "Have patience with me. I will repay everything." Now think about this, how silly this is. The servant is falling at the knees of the master, and imagine saying you could really come up with millions of dollars back then in those days when he probably makes a couple of bucks a day. Impossible to do that. But what does God do in God's grace? Verse 27 says, "The Lord of the slave felt compassion and released him and forgave him of his debt." So folks, our theme has been the devil's in the details. So we got to wonder, how can we quit worrying about things that are insurmountable, things out of our control, things that are really too big for us to handle? How can we pay the price to have our souls secure in heaven? And the question is, well, we can't really, can we, Tony? And the answer is no. So not insurance companies can do that. Tony Walker Financial can't do that. Your favorite pastor or priest can't do that. The only eternal security you've got can't be found in an insurance policy or a church or a building or a priest or a pastor, but in Christ. That is the only way you can have assurance of your eternal salvation. So if your life feels like if you're in a shambles, if you feel like your past is dogging you, remember, ask for forgiveness, be patient. God will be patient with you, and I'm sure everything will work out just fine. Remember, the slave couldn't repay the master, and you and I can't either. But we've got an out, and that's Christ. Thank goodness. Right, Aaron? Let me ask you something. If you're sitting there thinking, you know what, Tony, I don't have an out with my finances. In fact, I feel like everybody out there is making more money than I've made. I feel like I've gotten behind the 8 ball. Maybe I've got some money in a 401k, but I don't know where to manage that money, where to move that money. Who can I trust? Well, as a fiduciary, we would love to have that opportunity to meet with you. It's easy to do. All you got to do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Now, once there's several things you can do. You can register for a workshop. You can send a question to me. Don't forget the free fee analysis. In fact, if you're on there, why don't you just click on Contact Tony and say, I want a free fee analysis of my investments, and we'll show you this new platform we are offering with Charles Schwab as our custodian. Same one I used in the 90s. It's just actually new and improved. We got all kinds of great technology with that. And we can handle any account size. I didn't mention that earlier. You know, a lot of people with this Department of Labor ruling, more and more advisors are what we call dumping their clients because the clients don't have enough money. With our new platform with Charles Schwab, we have no minimum account sizes. So my point is, bring it on. If we can help you, give us a shot at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 877-499-WALK. That's 877-499-WALK. We hope you've enjoyed today's program on The Devil's in the Details Part 2. We're going to come back next week, and we'll be in The Devil's in the Detail Part 3, where we're going to examine banks and interest rates. How do banks work, and how come they can make so much money when all they're giving you is 1% on the CDs that they're offering right now? We're going to talk about that next week, so you want to stay tuned for that. In the meantime, you've been watching the WorryFree Retirement. I'll see you next week, and if all else fails, you remember to be worry-free.
Thank you for watching the Worry-Free Retirement with Tony Walker. If you need a safe and simple game plan for your retirement, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and schedule a free, no-obligation meeting with Tony.